So Sean says we can't. Wait, who are you replying to? Oh, okay. Yeah, Eric, please. We can talk about that later, but please don't type that in the chat during class. It's a serious issue. Okay, if no one else has any other thoughts, let's move on. So now we're going to talk about 3 key questions, because animal rights are very vague. So we're going to split it into 3 discussions. First of all, should eating animals be allowed? Second, should bullfighting be allowed? And third, should animal testing be allowed? So the first question we're going to address is probably the most simple one and the one that we come into contact with the most in our life. And the question is, should eating animals be allowed? So eating meat is an integral part of many societies. Almost everyone does it. Most people aren't vegan or vegetarian. However, the process of raising animals and killing them for food is seen as inhumane and immoral by many. I'd imagine that many of you who said that there's no morally significant difference between humans and animals might think that way. So what do you think about this practice and why? Should it be allowed or not? And feel free to just talk. And I'd prefer actually if you unmuted yourself and talked, because it's hard for me to keep up with the chat. Anthony, yeah?
Like it all depends on whether they're executed humanely, because you can't exactly argue that it's inhumane to do that to them, because they were literally born to be killed, you know. So and it all depends whether you kill them humanely. Like if you sedate them before you execute them, then they won't feel any pain, and that's the thing that that drives the argument for many animal humanists, that it hurts them, and you know.
Okay. Well, what if we gave birth to a human, and we told the human that they were like born to be killed, and then we sedated them in like a humane manner? Would that be humane? It doesn't seem so, right?
Theoretically, because the human wouldn't be able to comprehend anything, and because their brain hasn't developed. So yeah,
Okay, I see your point.
like they wouldn't be able to understand what was happening to them, but by then they would be drifted into unknowingness, and then they'd journey to the other. Then they'd be in the other world.
Okay, I see. So Eric says they can kill each other. Oh, and Ariel says because other animals always eat each other as well. That's also a valid argument, but just to play devil's advocate, the argument against the argument that you raised is that animals have a lower level of moral control, over themselves. Therefore, they have a lower level of moral responsibility. Like when a lion chooses to eat a deer, they're not fully in control. Whereas for humans, we have a really easy choice to make, to go vegetarian or to go vegan, that won't like drastically impact our life. So I think that's the difference. Sean says it depends. Do you want to elaborate that in the do you want to elaborate? And feel free to just talk in the voice channel. So Sean says you might need to eat to survive. We're assuming that you don't have to eat to survive. Or sorry, we're assuming that you don't need to eat animals to survive. Because I think that if you have to eat an animal to survive, that's a very different discussion that much more people would lean towards the other side. So Anthony says, but then wouldn't you argue the same for plants? Well, that's why our previous question was important, right? Because there's certain things that humans and animals share, such as ability to reason and ability to suffer, that plants don't have. That would be the argument for that. Okay, I'm actually curious. So what if we change the situation into a situation in which humans, like you're in the wild and you have to eat an animal to survive. Who still thinks in that situation that it's still immoral to kill the animal? Y'all don't have to be that silent. Come on. What are your thoughts? Isabel says, I think for survival, everyone would be fine with killing the animal. Well, I think most people definitely would, but I'm curious because some people would think that that's not true. Okay, so nobody thinks that it's not okay to eat an animal if you're forced to. So what about back to the original discussion? Let's just say that you only eat meat because it tastes good. So you're sacrificing another animal's life in order to like make yourself feel good, I guess. Um, so yeah, going back to the original discussion, anyone have any other thoughts on that? Someone says, what about the bacteria you kill while using disinfectant? Well, that's completely different, right? Because once again, going back to the previous question, bacteria lacks things like ability to suffer or ability to reason or cognition. Okay, if no one has any other thoughts on this, there's a side question that I'd like to ask. The new question is, let's imagine that you're forced to eat some animals in order to survive. And there's a variety of different animals that you could eat. And let's assume that you only have to eat one of them, meaning that like you don't have to eat like 10 bunnies versus one lion or something like that. How would you make the choice on which animal to eat? Do you do it by intelligence, by similarity to humans? What would you do? Anthony, yeah.
I'd be starving. So theoretically, I'd choose based off of several things: nutrition, how long they could supplement my hunger for, and then finally intelligence as the final intelligence and usefulness. If to me, if not eaten, like I wouldn't exactly eat a cow because it would eventually be able to give me milk or something like that.
I
You know.
see. Okay. Well, let's assume that they're all useless to you after you eat them. Assume that they all provide the same amount of meat, which is obviously not true, but let's assume that just for the sake
Oh,
of discussion. And also assume that they're all the same to catch, as Chris said, and assume that they all have the same amount of meat on their bones, as Ella said.
and they are all not endangered.
Yeah. Just don't worry about any of the other factors, just the differences in the animals themselves.
Oh, I'd eat the bugs because if there were any bugs, I'd eat them because not only are they nutritious, there are so many different types of bugs, and there are so numerous of them. So it wouldn't hurt them much, and also because bugs aren't as advanced as many as many. So the intelligence argument wouldn't exactly work too.
Okay. Well, that's valid, but let me just continue the line of reasoning for your first point. You said that there's many bugs, right?
Yeah.
So does that mean that if there's like a very endangered animal, is the life of that animal worth more than the life of a human because humans are not endangered?
Yeah, theoretically, yeah. It's
Hmm. Okay.
I think for me, like I would select based on human like emotional attachments to the animal. Like we wouldn't eat our pet because we have bonds with them. But for like a pig, we're not really like closely emotionally attached. So
Okay. And it's true that most people would do that, but the question is, I mean, does emotional attachment make a difference in the moral factor? In other words, should people do that? Or let me rephrase that. Like, it's true that if someone had the choice between eating like a wild boar and their cat, most people would choose the boar, obviously. Um, but why is that the right choice? It makes you feel better, but besides making you feel better, why is that the right choice? Because most moral frameworks aren't based on just do whatever makes you feel good. So Chris says they would eat an animal that's already dying. Okay, I guess it's fair enough. Okay, let's move on to the second question then. But before we do that, anyone have any closing thoughts? I noticed that I think 5 people actually joined in. So right now what we're talking about is animal rights, and we're exploring 3 questions related to animal rights. We're exploring eating animals, animal testing, and the third one, which is bullfighting. So this is our second question of the day. Should bullfighting be allowed? I'll just read the text really quickly. Bullfighting has its roots in rituals dating back many centuries. In its modern Spanish style, bullfighting first became a prominent cultural event in the early 18th century. Some people consider bullfighting a cruel sport in which the bull suffers a severe and torturous death. Many animal rights activists often protest bullfighting in Spain and other countries, citing the needless endangerment of the bull and bullfighter. To other people, the spectacle of the bullfight is not mere sport. The event is not only culturally significant, but also a fine art in which the bullfighter is trained in a certain style and elicits emotion through the act of the fight. Some argue that the fighting bull lives 4 to 6 years, whereas the meat cow only lives 1 to 2. Those years, in addition, are spent free roaming. Others argue that the death of the bull in the ring is more humane than the death of the animals in the slaughterhouse. So let's see. Oh wow, there's a lot of people in the chat. Chris says no, Sean says no, Anthony says no, it's torture. Okay, so most people are saying no. Do one of you want to explain why in the voice thingy?
I think it's because it's basically pointless. Although it's just entertaining, it's very necessary and cause the animals to be in pain.
Okay, that's a valid point. Let me ask you this then. You might think it's pointless because, just to play devil's advocate, by the way, I think I agree with you. But it might be possible that you only think it's pointless because you're not part of that culture. However, for some people in the culture, they might feel it's not pointless. Like, let's take a look at it from another point of view, right? Like, let's say that you're, like, I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but let's say that you're like, I don't know, you're Hindu, and so, or let's say that you're a part of a culture that says that we should not eat like pigs or something, or we should not eat cows or something. And then you see people in the US eating cows, and you think, wow, that's really immoral. But maybe the only reason that we think that it's not immoral is because we're in that culture. So what about, isn't that the same for this? And if not, why not? Anthony, yeah.
I think it's bullfighting is just immoral altogether because one, it's needless. Two, I don't know. The Spaniards think it is, but it's just torturous to the bull. Like if like the bull if bullfighting was just like one clean spear to the bull's gut, like, and then like finishes it off instantly, no pain, nothing, then I might indulge in it. But it's countless stabs that we slowly weaken and torture the bull until the matador gives it one final impalement to the heart. So I don't care why I don't know why the Spanish call that a spectacle, but it's
I personally think about the culture thing. Although, like, many cultures have different values, but there must be some kind of universal cultural value that's, like, something that's not allowed whether what culture you're in. For instance, some cultures allow cannibalism, but that's like illegal in most countries. So I feel like the animal abuse should be, well, maybe they don't consider it animal abuse, but something like that should be considered a universal cultural value because it causes the animal so much pain, and it's just, I don't know, not worth it in most cultures.
Okay, I see. Two things I want to comment. First of all, going back to the previous comment about someone saying that it's like it hurts a lot for the bull. I think that was Anthony, or I forgot who it was. Andrew, I see your hand. I'll call you next. But the fact is that, like for example, in the U.S., when we eat a pig, the pig is usually like stuffed in a pen. They're forced to eat. They become really fat, and they just die. And so it's pretty cruel too. So like, how do you compare? And then for the question that you raised about the some things being universally wrong regardless of culture, that's definitely a very, very good argument. But and I think that most people would agree with that, unless you're like a hardcore moral relativist. But the question is, how do you know that bullfighting is like bad? Because there's some things like slavery that everyone thinks, okay, no matter what culture you're in, that's bad, or as you said, cannibalism. But why is bullfighting bad then? Like, why is bullfighting bad, but not Thanksgiving, where you kill a turkey to eat? Andrew, did you have your hand up before? Isabel, I see your hand up. I'll
Yeah,
find you next.
yeah, I have my hand up.
Mhm.
Okay, the reason why I think bullfighting shouldn't be allowed is because since people are watching bullfighting as entertainment, and I don't think that people should enjoy seeing other seeing other animals die. I mean, like if we're going to butcher a pig or kill a cow for its meat, at least it's not in front of the public eye. The general public don't really see when it's done. But bullfighting, if bulls die from bullfighting, it's right in front of their eyes, and I don't think, and I think just watching other animals suffer in public and enjoying it out of anything, it's just not right.
Okay. Isabel, what were you gonna say?
I think like killing animals for food is justified because it's like down to the basics of living for like eating, but bullfighting is just pure entertainment and it doesn't do like any physical good to anybody.
Okay, I see. That's kind of like a similar, I guess. Yeah. Let's see the comments. So Chris says, if what is normal for a culture is right, then being a Nazi is a culture. It still doesn't make it right. That's true, but that's why my question wasn't. That's why my question is about bullfighting specifically. Like, when you look at the Holocaust, almost all philosophers would think that the Holocaust is wrong, regardless of what the Nazis think. But then when you look at things like celebrating Chinese New Year, nobody thinks that that's wrong. So bullfighting is somewhere in the middle. So my question is, how do you know where to draw the line? And he says, the eating culture started from ancient times when humans needed to eat meat when they couldn't find food. Therefore, this culture started from the necessity to eat. However, we don't need that anymore. And instead, we only need it for entertainment. Therefore, it's immoral. Well, couldn't you make the same argument for other things, though? Why couldn't you make the same exact argument for eating meat in general? Oh, wait, no. That is what you're saying. My bad. Wait, is that what you're saying? I don't think that's what you're saying, but, or correct me if I'm wrong, but why can't you make the same argument for eating meat in general? In the past, we were forced to eat meat when we were hunter-gatherers, and somehow that carried on for thousands of years until now, in which our technology has advanced far beyond the basic level in order to not have to eat meat, yet we still eat meat. Andrew has their hand raised. Go ahead.
No, but I mean, like in the Holocaust, the Nazis were sort of enjoying the fact that all the Jews were dying. It's like it was their destiny or something. But like in Chinese New Year, nobody's killing for fun. So, like as I said before, I think the line should be drawn